In this lesson, we'll take a look at circumference and arc length. Circumference, remember, is your distance around a circle. It can be found by the formula pi times diameter, or 2 times pi times your radius. We'll take a look at our first example. It says find the circumference of a circle with a radius of 9. So I want to find an exact answer, but also an estimated answer. An exact answer is when we leave our variable in terms of pi. So if I have a radius of 9, I'm going to use 2 times pi times my radius of 9. So my exact answer left in terms of pi will be 18 pi. If I want my estimated answer, I still get 18 pi, and I'm going to just go ahead and put that into my calculator and get a rounded value, or I can estimate 18 times 3, but our estimated answer is going to be 56.55, rounded to the nearest 100. Example B, find the radius of a circle with a circumference of 26. So I'm going to start with my circumference being 26, and I know my formula is 2 times pi times my radius. Just going to divide everything by 2 pi here. And I will simplify everything. So my radius for this one is going to be 13 pi. That's my exact answer left in terms of pi. I can go ahead and divide that, and I'll get something like 4.14. Arc length is a portion of the circumference. Arc length corollary tells us that in a circle, the ratio of the length of a given arc to the circumference is equal to the ratio of the measures of the arc to 360 degrees. So if we have an arc length found of AB, and we divide it by 2 pi r, it will be equal to the measure of my arc length divided by 360. Or maybe you use the idea that an arc length of AB is equal to the measure of arc AB divided by 360 times 2 times pi r. So we have arc AB is a quarter of the circle. So a quarter of the circle. A quarter of the circle is going to be 90 degrees. So if I take a look at this portion, it's 90 divided by 360, which is 1/4. So therefore, our arc length is a quarter of the full circumference. So you can find the circumference of this circle and then divide it by 4 to find just this arc length. Make sure you recognize that arc length is different than arc measure. Arc measure has that M in front of the symbol AB, arc. It signifies the measure of the arc is equals in degree measure. Arc length is a portion of the circumference, and it will have units like inches or squares. Let's take a look at our example for arc length. Find the length of AB. See how it says find the length? That means we're looking for arc length. So I'm going to start by taking a look at the central angle of 150. I know that my arc will measure 150. So I'm going to start with that to find my portion of the circle. I'm going to start off with 150 divided by 360. And I'm going to simplify that if I can as much as possible. That simplifies to 5/12. I multiply that by the circumference of the circle. So circumference is, again, remember, 2 times pi times your radius. So here I have a radius of 5. I've got 2 times pi times 5. My circumference, if I want to leave it in terms of pi, is going to be 10 pi. So I take my ratio of my arc measure compared to 360, and then I'm multiplying it by my circumference. As I do this, I'm going to get 50 pi divided by 12, and you can simplify that to be exact, 25 pi over 6. That's my exact. And if I pop that in my calculator and round it to the nearest hundredth, I'm going to get 13.09 meters. Meters, because this is a length, arc length. Sometimes we're given arc length and we need to find other missing measures. For example, it says find the measure of our arc AB. What they gave me was the arc length. So I'm going to have to reverse engineer this. So let's see. We know that my arc measure is equal to a portion of the circle. I'm going to start off with looking at 18.84, my arc length, is going to be equal to my arc measure divided by 360. That's that ratio, same as this ratio. And then we multiply it by the circumference of the circle. So my circumference of my circle, again, is 2 pi r. So 2 pi times 9, 18 pi. So I'm going to multiply by 18 pi. From here, you have to do some algebra to figure out what you've got here. I'm going to kind of treat this like it's a proportion. I'm going to take 18 pi and multiply it by my arc measure. And then I'd multiply my 360 times my 18.84 to solve. And divide by 18 pi. And that's going to give me my measure of arc AB. When I put that into my calculator, I get an approximation of 119.94. And I would put that with degrees since this is an arc measure. You have 6 different examples to try, and it says where possible, give your exact and your estimated answers. Go ahead and try them and then check back in with your video to see your final answers. A asked you for the circumference, B asked you to find the radius, so just using the formula for circumference for both of those. C is asking you for that arc length, so we take the portion of our circle, 40 degrees out of 360, and multiply it by the circumference, 2 times pi times radius. For letter D, we already have the arc length of 81.64 inches, and we have the portion of our circle, 260 degrees. I'm going to say 260 divided by 360 times, we would do 2 pi r, so we could figure out the radius. But here our question just asked you for circumference, and the formula for circumference is 2 pi r. So that's really what we're looking for, that whole value here. So I replaced the 2 pi r with C for circumference, and then just solved for that. Finding the radius, we take our portion of our circle, or our circumference, 45 over 360, and multiply it by circumference, 2 pi r. We know it equals a arc measure of 1.57. Simplify your fraction, multiply if you can, reduce, and you'll get your radius to be about 2 feet. On letter F, we have a skateboard wheel, which has a diameter of 56 millimeters. How many revolutions does the wheel make when traveling 3 meters? So those revolutions and the meters all revolve around your circumference. So I find my circumference to be about 176 millimeters. And I'm in millimeters, I got to change it to meters. 3 meters is equal to 3,000 millimeters. So I'm going to take my 3,000 millimeter distance and divide it by that circumference of approximately 176. And I'll find that I'm going to complete about 17 revolutions when I'm traveling 3 meters on my skateboard.